Patty here. Today I'm going to be talking about the Klir, which is the automatic fleece roller on the left, and the ATS, which is the Algae Tuef Scrubber on the right. Alrighty, let's start with the Klir units, and they do come in two different sizes, the DI4 and the DI7, and that it depends on your filter sock diameter. My sump filter sock holder is 4 inches, so I got a DI4 and I got 4 extra rolls. So let's go over how this unit works. So there is a fleece roll, a sensor, and a motor. So the water will increase because if fleece gets dirty, then the sensor detects the water increases, which makes the motor run and new fleece go through and water decreases. And that's straightforward what this unit does. So it replaces the filter sock. So rather than having to change your filter sock every couple of days and running with a problem that the filter sock may get clogged, which can flood your sump, this does it for you. So now that I went over how it works, installation, really love how the installation is. Why? Because it's pretty much plug and play. They are really good step-by-step video that Coral View did. I will post that YouTube video link down below. And one thing that I noticed right after the first roll is that I see, as you can see, that white ring on my first, and it only lasted a few days, and I was wondering what's going on, and then I found out why. So first of all, my first roll is on the far left, my second roll is on a middle, and then my third roll, which I was just going to install, is on the right. So let's go back to the first roll, and as you can see, there is a clear ring where pretty much the roll just went through, but it didn't catch anything, and I pinpointed the problem. So what you want to do is every time your sump level, your water level changes drastically, what the unit see or what the sensor see is that every time that water level goes up, meaning that the fleece is dirty, and it will continue rolling it until the water level changes. The problem is that it's not going to change because it's not the fleece that is dirty, it's just your water level that change. So every time you want to do anything on your sump that it will increase your water level, you want to turn off your Klir so it doesn't continue running thinking that the fleece is dirty. For example, if you do not have a stop valve and you turn off your water pump, you want to turn off your Klir too. If you don't have a stop valve and you're doing something as simple as gluing some corals or anything, because remember, every time you put more mass on your tank, like your hand or a rock, is going to increase your water level because more water is going to flow into your sump and your Klir is going to run. So definitely turn off your Klir if that water level changes on your sump. Another thing I found out is that I was getting a lot of water through my Klir, and as you can see here, my water level was really high and it was pushing a lot of water, and that made my Klir run even more often, which it made the rolls go faster. So what I did is I decreased my pump, my return pump, a little bit so it's not so strong, and I also put my Klir on the first chamber. Do know that it doesn't matter which way you put your Klir, because I have had them on both different ways, like facing, and it works the same way. All right, let's move on to water level, and this is very important because you want your sensor to be above the water and by a couple of millimeters. Why? Because remember that as the fleece gets clogged, it raises your water level. So if you don't have enough of a space, that water level increases and your fleece might not be dirty enough, and you might be wasting that fleece because it's going to prematurely roll before it's well used. So definitely have a couple of millimeters, I will say 4 millimeters or so above the water, so that fleece gets really nice and dirty. Because if you have it barely there, it will just prematurely roll the fleece, and you will get kind of like what you see on my first roll. And a couple of other rolls I'm going to show you next is that my water level was too high and it was prematurely lowering the water level, and the fleece was just getting used too fast before it really got nice and saturated with all of that detritus. And as you can see right here, my water level before was already touching that sensor, so this also led to this problem, and is when I connected it will pretty much turn off. And I thought that there was a problem with my sensor, so I contacted CoralView and I did it via Instagram. I received this message. You can contact them and send them an email. They reply right away. They send me replacement parts that arrive within days, and then I went and took a step back and found all of these troubleshooting problems that I had. And when I fixed all of these, about the water changes, about turning off the units, about going and decreasing the strength of my return pump, and found out that everything works great. It was not the parts, it was actually me. It was the user error. And after all of this, the unit is working great. It has been going strong for around 2 to 3 weeks without me having to change the rolls and without no problem. So definitely something to think about and keeping an eye on is your water level on your sump and turning off the unit when you're going to have your sump water level change. And besides that, really liking the units, thinking about putting a second one in this tank, and thinking and actually buying another one for a future tank I'm gonna be doing. Oh, one thing, if you want the fleece to roll, you just press and hold that button, and as you can see, you can roll the fleece. And check that out, that fleece, it is like, even the particles, even catches particles like pieces of food. I've seen pieces of nori, pieces of mysis and krill that this fleece catches. I love also the lid because it does get smelly, almost like a skimmer smell. So I do love that there is a lid for it that it captures that smell. And as you can see here, also the water level. Also, another thing that was suggested by another user of the Klirs is to move that blue controller out of the sump and putting it somewhere else, because the humidity of the sump shortened the life of that controller and just your Klir overall. Alrighty, let's move on to the Icecap Tuef Scrubber, or also known as ATS, which stands for Algae Tuef Scrubber. And what does this do? So what this equipment does is given an ideal place for algae to grow. How? So you have a box and it is illuminated by two grow lights on each side, and it has a piping going through this unit, and you can connect it to the plumbing on your tank, or it can be a standalone and just use a pump for it. I went with a pump. So the water goes through this unit and it trickles down into this screen that you actually see right here, that white screen that is inside of the Algae Tuef Scrubber, and that's where your algae will be growing. And when that screen is full of algae, you remove anywhere from 50 to 75%. And what does the algae growing there does? It absorbs nutrients, especially phosphates and nitrates. The unit that I chose was the medium one, which is rated up to 220 gallons, because the small one, it was rated only 80 gallons, and my tank is 100.3 gallons. So I went to Home Depot and I got all the piping. Why did I get all this PVC piping? It was actually to create a shelf for the ATS to be, because the ATS needs to be above the water, not in the water. It needs to be above your sump. So I thought the easiest way to create this shelf for the ATS is with PVC piping. And also you can have something custom made, somewhat maybe an acrylic base for your, or stand for your ATS. So here's me putting it together, and it was honestly pretty fun. This is the first time I used PVC. I didn't glue it or anything, is set in there, and I am planning actually to go and have something custom made for my ATS to sit. So as you can see, for the left side, those is where the water comes out. Here on the right is where the water comes in, and there is that little valve where you can go and dial in your pump if you want it stronger. You know, you can close or open that valve to control how much water goes through. So after the first installation, I saw that I had a couple of problems. First, the ATS was on the front and my skimmer was on the back, and I knew I needed to pretty much flip them. I needed to put the ATS on the back and the skimmer on front so I can get access to that skimmer cup and so on, and also these piping. So the bottom pipe is the main drain, while the top one is emergency drain. So if for some reason my main drain clogs, the second or the emergency drain will drain the water, avoiding any flooding. So what I did is I changed them both to a hose so they can go all the way to my first chamber, so I can go through all of my filtration rather than going into the middle chamber. And I also moved the ATS to the back and move the skimmer to the front. And why did I went with the ATS in the first place? Because I had a refugium on the middle chamber. The thing with that refugium is that you need a light to grow the macroalgae, and that light also promotes algae growth everywhere on the sump. So I had algae everywhere on my skimmer, and I didn't wanted the algae to create problems from getting loose and clogging the skimmer, to clogging my return pump, to even catching detritus, which cancels out the refugium benefits like absorbing nutrients like phosphates and nitrates, because I still gonna have all these detritus that I will have to constantly clean, so it will be effective. So I decided to go with this option of doing an algae tuef scrubber where all your algae is concentrated into this box rather than all over my sump. So how do you go from this white screen to start growing algae and looking like this? And this was just the beginning. So what you want to do is you want to grab a little bit of hair algae from anywhere in your tank. Even on the rock, you can just pluck it out, and what you want to do is you want to press it against that screen really good, so make sure it stays, because remember, water will trickle down, so you want to make sure that that algae will stay so it can start growing in this box. You can also, if you don't have any algae, you can leave the box running and it will start growing algae as you're giving it the best place for it to establish. I am currently running my Algae Tuef Scrubber the opposite schedule as my lights, as it helps with stabilizing pH. And so far so good. Really liking the Klir, the ATS, and all the changes that I have made to my sump. The tank is doing great. And if you have any questions, comment down below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications. And don't forget, stay awesome.